Mass movement, also known as mass wasting, is the movement of rock and soil downslope under the influence or the force of gravity. This movement involves some form of lubrication, which is basically involving water. Yes, water is involved in this process, and for it to be possible, this must also be taking place on a mountain slope. Now, there are various types of mass movement. So, let us see what these types of mass movement are. The first type of mass movement is soil creep. It's a slow process, so it's going to take a little time. Soil creep is basically the slow and gentle as well as continuous downhill movement of overburden under the influence of gravity. For this to take place, there has to be, as I said earlier, water, and it must be on a slope. So, let us see how this can happen. It can happen in at least two ways. The first of the two ways involve water entering the soil within maybe the summer months. When in the winter months, the water in the soil freezes. Now, when the summer months come around again, the water that is frozen in the soil begins to melt and causes the soil to become saturated. The underlying layer of frozen soil or substratum is impenetrable, so therefore the water cannot go down. This causes the loose saturated soil on top to slide downwards slowly, downslope. This is what we also call solifluction. Another way by which soil creep also occurs is when rainwater penetrates the soil, resulting in the soil becoming saturated. The soil, under the influence of gravity, moves slowly downslope, and anything in its path, such as walls, trees, fences, you name it, they are going to actually tilt down slope because the rocks and heavy material that is moving down slowly is pushing them in the direction. You will have ripples on the slope as well, kind of like waves in the water developing. During the rainy season, water penetrates the soil and eventually causes the soil to become saturated. Under the influence of gravity, the soil is slowly pulled down the slope, causing anything in its path to tilt downwards. This is soil creep. In cold countries, the water that has penetrated the soil is frozen. Within the warm months, the ice melts, causing the soil to be saturated and slowly moves downslope, tilting anything in its path. This is also another form of soil creep. So here is a diagram showing you what soil creep is. As you can see, the soil is slowly moving down slope, and everything within the path of the soil is tilting down slope. So you have light posts tilting down slope, the trees are tilting down slope, the fence is also about to break because of the pressure of the land coming down on it. As you can see, rocks are also moving with the soil, and this causes, even though it's a very slow movement, to be one of a powerful force of nature. Here we have a mountain slope. Now, as you can see, this is strong evidence of soil creep because there are ripples or wavy-like features in the slope, like, waves in the water. This is good evidence to show you that soil creep is taking place on this slope. It is very slow, so you won't actually see it with your eyes, but over time, the evidence will begin to materialize. Now, the next type of mass movement is what we call landslide, and this is a very rapid movement of large masses of earth materials from a cliff or a steep slope. Again, water has to be involved, and as you can see, it happens along a slope. Let us see how this actually takes place. So, along a slope, there is a layer of permeable rock or permeable layer through which water can penetrate and eventually become saturated. However, this permeable layer of rock or unconsolidated material is actually situated on top of a layer of impermeable material or rock through which water cannot penetrate. Now, as it becomes saturated and unconsolidated, gravity pulls down the loose materials and causes it to move down the plane along which the loose materials lie on top of the impermeable layer of materials. This is one way in which landslides occur. Another way by which landslides occur is as a result of soils such as clay and cracking during the dry season. During heavy rains, these cracks allow for water to penetrate the soil and thus causing the soil to become saturated. It no longer can hold the water. The soil becomes loose or unconsolidated and very heavy. And it is in this state that the force of gravity pulls the loose and heavy materials down slope. They move very swiftly, and this is just another way by which landslides occur. As you can see here, a layer of loose material is on top of a layer of impermeable material. The impermeable material, since water cannot pass through, allows for rainwater to settle into the soil, causing the soil to become saturated. Due to the pull of gravity, the soil or the loose material are pulled down slope in a very quick manner, and thus is defined as a landslide. Here, as you can see in our illustration, rainfall on the slopes, and the slopes become saturated. Over time, gravity pulls the materials downslope, causing landslides to occur. Looks very devastating, doesn't it? I'm sure it is. Now, a third way which landslides can happen is when a layer of clay or shale that is basically covered by another layer of rocks. Now, when wet, clay or shale can easily be very slippery, and therefore, during wet rainy seasons, especially when you have bouts of heavy rainfall, the clay or the shale may become slippery. Therefore, the rocks above them will slide downslope under the influence of gravity. Landslide occur, and this happens when a layer of impermeable rock that is basically overlain by a layer of permeable rock that has very loose material. Now, during rainy season, the layer of rock that is above the impermeable layer will become saturated, as well as very heavy and loose. So it will slide along the plane of the fracture that separates it from the impermeable rock in a swift way down slope. So here we have an illustration of that happening. You have a layer of impermeable rock, and then it is overlain by a layer of permeable rock with loose materials. During rainy season, these loose materials become saturated, and as you can see, it is separated by a fracture or a fault, and this will cause the loose layers to become easily movable or mobile. So they go down the slope along the plane that separates the impermeable layer from the permeable layer. Thus, we have a rapid movement of debris downslope. Here we have a real-life illustration of a landslide that has occurred, where you can clearly see one layer sliding down the plane of the impermeable layer, or that's separated from the impermeable layer. So sometimes, alright, so let us look yet at another way by which landslides occur. Well, this is the most common one, especially in the Caribbean, where you have slopes that contain very loose or unconsolidated material like soils. Now what happens is that during bouts of heavy rainfall, they become very loose and heavy, and therefore they are dragged downslope under the influence of gravity. Therefore, they come in the form of very fast and devastating mud flows that can cause damage to property and even claim lives. As you can see, here we have another form of landslide in the form of a mud flow or debris flow, where in the upper areas of the mountains along the steep slopes, heavy rainfall caused the loose materials to become saturated, and under the influence of gravity flows down slope very quickly in the form of mud flows. So landslides can also occur in an area that is constantly being undercut by either the sea or the river. Yes, sometimes the river undercuts the base of a slope or a cliff. The same thing happens along the coast. Now the overhanging layer of overburden or overhanging rocks will eventually collapse under its own weight under the influence of gravity. Here is an illustration of what we're talking about. So as you can see along the coast, the wave is attacking the cliff face at the base. Over time, eventually, the cliff face will create a notch or an opening, and this will cause the overhanging layer to collapse in the sea. It will come down as a rapid landslide. This can also happen along a river bank, where one end of the river or one side of the river's bank is constantly being eroded at the base, and the overhanging rock will collapse into the water as a swift and devastating landslide. Here we have a landslide occurring along a coastal area where the base of the cliff has been eroded by the sea and causing the overhanging rock to collapse into the sea in a very swift way. As you can see, earthquakes are also devastating, as well as incredible factors that can create landslides. The thing is, earthquakes can create strong vibrations that can shake loose unconsolidated materials downslope from or along a steep-sided slope, especially in mountainous areas. Now, if the settlements downslope, these landslides can cause damage to property and even claim lives. Okay, so during short bouts of heavy rainfall, especially like during a hurricane, this can cause slopes that are left bare as a result of some form of deforestation to be exposed to heavy rainfall. Now the soils become saturated, and as they are saturated, this will cause them to become loose and prone to being slid or pulled downslope under the very influence or the strong influence of gravity. Here we have an illustration of that once more. As you can see, the soil falling all the way from the summit or the top of the mountain. So now that we have finished look at the various physical ways by which landslides occur, or the natural ways by which landslides occur, let us look at the ways human activities can lead to landslides. Now, humans can always remove the vegetation from steep slopes in order to make way for the erection of buildings or settlement. Now, this will leave the land prone to being saturated by water during times of heavy rainfall, and eventually causing the loose materials to be pulled downslope by the strong forces of gravity. And this will lead to a landslide, but it's a landslide that can lead to the destruction of houses or any other buildings within its path. Here you can see a disaster that occurred as a result of such an activity in India. Now, sometimes when roads are being constructed, the base of the slope is actually undercut in order to make way for the road construction. This causes the overhanging material that has been left unsupported to collapse under its own weight due to the strong forces of gravity. As we can see here, this is a landslide that occurred along a road in Jamaica as a result of the base of the slope being undercut in order to make the road wider, and this happened during a heavy bout of rainfall. Well, there you have it. Thank you very much for watching my video on mass movement. Please remember to click a like, click the subscribe button, and leave your comments. Continue to love geography. I'm your host, Donovan Rattray.